Hello and welcome to PSYC3020 Assignment 1 briefing video, where this presentation is designed to just give you an overview of your Assignment 1 and where to start with it. First of all, what do you need to do? If you haven't already, download the Assignment 1 briefing document from the Blackboard website and read it thoroughly from beginning to end. Second thing, download both of the example assignments that are given and read both of them thoroughly from beginning to end. Third thing you need to do is that in this assignment you get a choice of topics, including the option of inventing your own topic. So the next thing you've got to do is actually choose what you're going to write about. Then obviously write the thing, and finally, if you check in the course overview, you'll find the deadline for this assignment. So basically before the deadline you need to submit your assignment online through the PSYC3020 Blackboard website. If you need help with this assignment, so that is something not covered by this briefing, please contact your tutor rather than me. I strongly recommend making an immediate start on this assignment with the background reading. Note that some of the relevant information you'll need, so for example the specific definitions of types of reliability and validity in creating tests and that sort of thing, will be presented in lectures 1 to 5. So if you really want to get ahead, what I've done is actually place the draft slides of these lectures on Blackboard. So what's this assignment about? Imagine you're an academic or a consultant with expertise in human measurement, and you've been invited to write a research proposal describing how you will create and validate a novel test or a battery of tests, where by battery you mean a novel combination of 2 or 3 tests or more, and we're trying to measure people's skill or ability in a specific real-world domain. So the aim is to propose something that would be of real benefit to society in some way. The design of the test must be based on empirical research, and the research proposal must demonstrate understanding and application of psychometric principles. And what we mean by that is that central to your proposal, one of the key things that we'll be marking on will be a description of how you are going to establish the reliability and validity of your test. To give an example, let's say that empirical research indicates that drivers with good hazard perception skills have fewer car crashes. In this case, what you might want to do is create a new hazard perception test that can tell apart safe versus high-risk drivers. So people are going to crash versus people who aren't going to crash. To help illustrate what we're actually after in this assignment, I've written one example assignment, and I also commissioned a former high-scoring student of 3020 to write a second assignment on a totally different topic. And we took these assignments and gave them to 2 experienced 3020 tutors to be marked, and they also added feedback and comments. And luckily for us, these tutors both independently scored both our assignments as being of a high grade 7 standard, so around about 96%. So that is, if you could write something that's of the standard of these 2 examples, then you should get a similarly high score. Okay, so this is why it's very, very important that you definitely go and get both those assignments and read them really, really carefully, because that should give you a clear idea of what this assignment is about and the sort of thing we'd like you to produce. Although obviously you've got to do it on a different topic. That leads us into choosing topics. Topic 1 is design and validate a new test or new battery of tests to assess whether older drivers are safe to continue to drive. Topic 2, design and validate a new test or new battery of tests to assess the competence of radiologists when screening mammograms for tumours. Topic number 3, design and validate a new test or new battery of tests to assess the effect of concussion sustained during a military deployment on soldiers' cognition. Topic 4, design and validate a new test or new battery of tests to select the best applicants for entry into a postgraduate training program for clinical psychology. And number 5, design and validate a new test or new battery of tests for differentiating people in the domain of your choice. And what we've done is arrange these topics within the briefing by the level of support we've provided and also the level of difficulty. So, for example, topic number 1 would be considered to be one of the easier topics, and we provide a lot of support for it. However, say topic number 4 is one where we consider it a harder topic and we've provided less support for it. Okay, so why would you want to choose topic 4 over topic 1? So one of the things we'll be grading is independent thinking and innovation and that sort of thing. Basically with topic number 4, there's much more scope for innovation and independent thinking because we haven't provided that support. In terms of what you should need to think about when you're choosing which of these options to go for, if you're the sort of person where you're finding this all very hard and you're very anxious about this subject, what I would recommend is you would choose something like topic 1 or maybe topic 2, where we provided a lot of support there for you, but you might have to work a little bit harder to gain those extra marks for things like independent thinking. If you're the sort of person however, who likes a bit more of a challenge and is willing to go that extra yard to get some extra points, then maybe that's where you want to choose topic 3 or 4, where the advantage of choosing these is that you don't have to try quite so hard in order to get some independent thinking in there because we haven't provided you with quite as much support. And of course option number 5 is the ultimate for those of you who are feeling confident and independent. And on top of all of this, this is where you come up with a thing that's entirely your own. With this topic number 5, it would be very easy to get lots of marks for independent thinking, but it's obviously a high risk as well because you might be choosing something that's quite difficult to do, where they may be difficult to get hold of articles about it and background, suitable background and so forth. Okay, so the idea is pick topics 1 to 5. It's possible to get any level of grade with any of the topics, so you can get perfectly easy to get a grade 7 with topic number 1. It's just if you pick topic number 1, you'll have to go that bit further to demonstrate your independent thinking because we provided that support. So what do you need to do to get going? Well, once you've got your assignment 1 briefing and you've read those 2 example assignments, in the assignment briefing what you'll find is all of those 5 topics with the references and background information and everything you need. So first thing to do is go and get some of the references that are provided and basically go and do some background reading. So read around broadly before choosing your topic, so this will allow you to establish some background knowledge on the topics before focusing on the area you actually wish to design and evaluate a new test for. You're encouraged to go beyond the provided references, and if you want a really good mark in this assignment, so the references are provided to give you a general background, to give you a starting point and some ideas, but to get some further references, try searching for keywords in databases such as PSYC3020 and Web of Science. Another route to finding more articles is to look up references cited in the reference sections of the recommended readings and then use databases to see what they cite and who has cited them. The next thing to do is to, when you're doing this reading, look for empirically supported relationships between whatever it is you want to measure and whatever it's supposed to be impacting. So for example, I might want to measure hazard perception, but the reason I want to measure hazard perception is that I want to predict crash risk. That is, in order for me to start looking at that, what I really want is an empirically demonstrated relationship, for example a correlation, between drivers' hazard perception skill and their crash risk. You should also be looking for other tests that are measuring whatever it is you want to measure, so you can see how other people have done what you're supposed to be doing, and to avoid just replicating them, to try and find something unique to do. Also, if you want to go down the route of choosing a test battery, where you might want to put together a few existing tests to make this battery, has anyone done it before, and if so, what did they put into that battery? Another very important issue is that you focus your proposed research once you've done a lot of this background reading and ensure you know exactly what you're proposing to do and why. So that's one way you can really hemorrhage marks, is by having something that's sort of really vague and ill-defined. Sort of questions you might need to ask are, what domain are you investigating, for example driving? What performance outcome measure am I most interested in? For example, I want to prevent car crashes. What skills or abilities are related to these performance measures? So for example, I might find that fast and accurate anticipation of potential traffic conflicts has a perception predicts car crashes. And other questions, what tests of these skills and abilities already exist? How can I improve on them, or at least improve the evidence for their effectiveness by running various studies of reliability and validity? Finally, another thing to think about is what are the risk factors that could limit the effectiveness of any new measure. So that is, remember, this is a research proposal. A proposal, you can't guarantee an outcome because it is research. But what are the dangers if you put this proposal? What are the chances it will actually work? Or what are the chances that there'll be some problem along the way? An important thing to bear in mind with this assignment, which people have made a mistake in the past, is that very specifically we're asking people to come up with a measure of a skill or ability, and we're not looking for measures of things like personality, because we're going to do that in assignment 2. However, it might be possible, if you're doing an assignment on a test battery, you might want to have a personality measure in there if it is determining something about your skill. So to give an example, empathy might be considered an important personality trait for determining competence among clinical psychologists. So you might want to include a measure of empathy, but the important thing here is your aim isn't to measure empathy for its own sake. The only reason for including empathy is to measure someone's abilities to be a clinical psychologist. Now on to how to actually write this proposal. So first thing to bear in mind when you're writing the proposal is whatever you do, never ever either collude or plagiarise anyone. So your assignment must be your own work. We're using this pretty sophisticated software called Turnitin, which I'm sure you're well aware of, which is very good at detecting any sorts of plagiarism. So that is, if any of the wording in your assignment is not your own, quotations aside, then you risk getting into very serious trouble, because copying other people's writing and trying to pass it off as your own in order to gain a degree is effectively committing both robbery and fraud. So note that Turnitin's got a huge database of articles from scientific literature, but also from the internet. Also includes all current and all previous assignments by students both in this course and in loads and loads of other courses all the way around the world that use this software. It contains all of the assignment readings and briefings, as well as the 2 example assignments. In previous semesters I've caught people trying to copy material from these obscure unpublished documents that what they thought were obscure websites. I've caught people trying to mash up a friend's assignment in order to try and beat the software. I've caught people trying to copy from assignments written by previous 3020 students written several years ago where they thought the assignments were old enough not to be in the system anymore. So this also means never lend your assignment to a fellow student even in the future, because if they copy your work then you'll risk getting into serious trouble too. And in the past, some students caught plagiarising have had their assignment marks dramatically reduced, often to 0, and if warranted you get a permanent note of misconduct on your academic record. Once this plagiarism or other types of academic misconduct has been suspected, the resulting process is incredibly stressful for all those concerned, has potentially dire consequences. Please do not do it to yourself. Okay, who's your intended audience for this assignment? So I want you to write this research proposal as if it were for an intelligent layperson who has a general understanding of things like statistical significance but has no specific insight into your topic. So that is, you've got to explain things on that sort of level. Note that you're also required to come up with a title for your research proposal, which is not the same as the assignment topic. So goes without saying that the title's got to be appropriate for both the research proposal and your audience. Notice it's also your first opportunity to engage the reader's interest, so don't squander that opportunity. Interest of the reader is one of the marking criteria. Length of this assignment is 2,000 words, well, so you can write one that's shorter than that, and you've got to include the word count of your assignment on the title page. This includes all words except in-text references. It doesn't include the reference list or the title page, but everything else. There will be a 10% leeway on this length, so if you really want to try your luck you can get away with 2,200 words, but assignments that are longer than this will be getting a penalty. Okay, you can read all about the penalty in the briefing. Also, penalties for late submission apply, so make sure you get your thing in on time unless you've applied for an extension. In terms of formatting, use APA 6th edition, where you can find further information on this in the briefing. Okay, other things you'll find in the briefing, there's a whole load of tips on writing style and how to put this thing together, so do make sure you go back and read that briefing carefully. Okay, so the assignment is intended to assess how well you can construct an argument involving scientific evidence, as well as how well you can apply the psychometric principles you'll be learning when you're constructing a new test. Make sure you address the task directly. Don't write just a generic proposal or it will go horribly wrong. Be specific, pretend this is a real-world research proposal with unlimited funds. So approach it like a professional. So what we're looking for is a well-written, well-argued piece of scientific writing based around empirical research. So that is, you need a thorough review of the empirical evidence regarding the design of your test to do well in this assignment. One good pointer is to try and replicate the sort of writing style, so fairly formal, fairly concise, used in the 2 example assignments. We do encourage you to be provocative and critical when you're appraising the evidence that you present. Don't just rattle off a list of studies. Explain why whatever you're presenting is relevant to your proposal and what the limitations and so forth is, if it's relevant, and how your proposal might overcome whatever limitations you're talking about. We will not mark you down for disagreeing with conventional wisdom, and if you make a good argument to support your case, then you'll be rewarded even if we disagree with you. However, of course, that's not an excuse for just being ignorant of conventional wisdom, for which we will mark you down. Don't ignore evidence that contradicts your viewpoint. You can mention the opposing evidence, but then maybe illustrate how the evidence supporting your argument is more convincing. It's okay to include personal reflections on the evidence, although be very clear when your claims are backed up by evidence versus when you're just speculating. One suggestion, if you can find no evidence to support a particular point you want to make, then one thing you could do is suggest an experimental study or an empirical study that could provide this evidence. So this, of course, has the advantage of making you sound clever and imaginative and makes it clear you're not just sort of churning through the references. So there's plenty of hints and tips like this and more in the briefing, so do go back and read that. Now let's talk about the sections of the proposal. We've got a general framework which should look something like this. So have a title page, executive summary, so like an abstract, introduction, your proposed research, test design and evaluation, reliability and validity criteria, conclusions, and references. So on the title page, you need to include the title of your assignment, you need your name, your student number, course code, PSYC3020, year and semester, your tutor's name and your tutorial group. Remember, you're being marked by your tutor. And finally, the title page needs to include a word count. The executive summary, this should appear on its own page. This shouldn't be any longer than 200 words because it is supposed to be just like an abstract. But in this, what you want to do is briefly outline your new test and the rationale behind its development. Right, the introduction. So this is where you want to establish the subject area, provide some background, but very importantly, make sure you avoid waffling, get straight to the point, only include things that are directly relevant to exactly what it is you want to propose. But basically you want to review the empirical and theoretical foundations of your proposal. Okay, after the introduction, proposed research. So this could be a short section that summarises your proposed test and its evaluation. So obviously this should be leading on from the introduction. This is where you pull together all the information you covered in your literature review and provide the rationale for your test design. Then next section you want to talk about the test design and evaluation. Okay, you can set out this part of the proposal however you like, as long as you're covering the right information, because different proposals might require different orders or might be set out better to set them out in different ways. But the very, very important thing here is that you've got to make it absolutely clear, be as specific as you can, exactly how you will establish your test's reliability and validity. So where people have really crashed and burned in the past is if they just mention these words or mention that they're going to test the validity without being specific about exactly how they're going to do that, because at the end of the day that's one of the main aims of this course, is that you'll go away knowing how to test the reliability and the validity. So, sort of things you might need to mention here. If you're testing participants, who you're going to sample, how you're going to recruit them, what sort of study design will you have. Again, look in the example proposals for what we mean by this. What sort of materials or measures do you need? What's going to be the testing procedure? And what are going to be outcome measures and what are your predictions? Right, next thing, reliability and validity criteria. Yeah, you can split these up into two sections if you want, or have them together in one section. But this part is very, very important. If this is weak, then you'll lose lots of marks. So what you're trying to do here is demonstrate to the reader that you have applied these psychometric principles in the design of your test, and that's very important to getting a good mark in this assignment. Be very explicit. How will you evaluate whether your new test is reliable? How will you determine whether your new test is valid? So this is where you might want to refer to the lectures, because I'll be giving lots of examples in the lectures of how you can do all of these things. Right, finally we've got conclusions, where this is all about summarising your proposed test and your plan, and the main purpose of the conclusion is just to sum up the arguments contained in the proposal and restate any main points. So you don't usually have any new information appearing here, but you should tie everything together and make some concluding statements, such as reminding the reader why your test is so important and why they should give you millions of dollars to do this. So remember, part of this proposal is that even though it's supposed to be empirically based and everything, at the end of the day it's also a sales pitch. You want the reader to be absolutely convinced to take on your research proposal and hurl lots of money at you, because of course this is a skill. If you can manage to develop this skill, it goes without saying it's amazingly useful in the real world. Right, references. So this is where, as I've already said, you want to really go beyond the references we've provided in the briefing. So go to Web of Science, PSYC3020. You can look up other things like Google Scholar if you want to, that sort of thing. Follow up references cited in other studies, and look in the briefing, and we give you a little URL to an APA style guide to make sure you get the references right. At the end of the day, make sure you don't lose marks for getting the format wrong, because that's the easy bit to do. To finish off, I'm just going to go through some of the frequently asked questions that you'll find listed at the back of the assignment briefing. So first up, people often ask how many references do they need to read. So while this is equivalent to asking what's the length of a piece of string, because it obviously depends on the length and the quality of the references, as well as how thoroughly you read them and how relevant they are to what you're saying. But if you really want a ballpark guidance, then maybe read the equivalent of about 10 short to medium length articles. But again, if you read 10 to medium articles but they're all rubbish, then that won't help you very much. Another question, how many marks do I lose if I hand in my work late without an extension? For this course it's 5% per day. That includes weekends, so basically don't hand it in late without an extension. So that's it for this presentation. Hope you find doing this assignment to be a useful and interesting educational experience. It's designed to try and develop a range of valuable skills and knowledge that I'm hoping will help you in your future career and make you more employable. So that's it. Get reading and good luck.